This is episode 7 of Rory's Table Tennis Topics, and as usual, I've got some new guests. So I've got Henry Arthur, the coach at Corby Smash and also Corby Town Table Tennis Clubs. We've got Liam McTiernan, who's, I think, 35 in the men's ranking list in England. And we've got Tom Arnott, who's a player from Darren's Table Tennis Club in Kent. So they're all just going to give a quick introduction to how they got involved in table tennis, maybe some achievements or coaching achievements, and then what they're intending to do in the future table tennis wise. So Henry, do you want to kick it off?
Sure, yes. So I started playing table tennis, I think I was about 12 probably. Like a lot of people, I was on holiday and there was a table where I was on holiday. In fact, it was a camping holiday, and the great British weather started raining, looked for something to do indoors, and there was a table tennis table. My dad had played when he was in the army, so he started me playing. So yeah, that's how it started. Came back to Corby after the holiday, and a social club where my two sisters did dancing. They had a table there, so I used to play on the table while they were doing the dancing. And about a year later, I heard about the local table tennis club. So it was about a year or so just playing socially before I found out about the local table tennis club, Corby Town.
From Corby, born and bred, yeah?
Yeah, Corby, born and bred. Just recently, the end of last year, I moved to Kettering, which is about 8 miles down the road. Big rivalry between Corby and Kettering. As you can imagine, they tend to hate each other, local rivals. So I've crossed the boundary, so I'm hated in both towns now.
I had never heard of the town called Corby until Corby Smash Table Tennis Club came on the scene. And
I'd never heard of Horseshoe, Rory.
Hadn't you? I bet you had.
No.
No?
No.
Okay. When did you hear about Horsham? The same time?
About 2 stars. About 5 years ago, probably.
Yeah, about the same for me, I think, for hearing about Corby. But no, the first I ever heard of you was an article that you wrote. I think you were about 39 or something, and you were saying you're looking forward to the vets, and you mentioned my name as an inspiration or something, because I did a challenge, expert in a year challenge to try and get. So I started off 272 in the English rankings, and the goal was to get to top 100. And I got to, I think it was 113, so I just missed out, but it was pretty close. Anyway, carry on. So you then carried on in local league and stuff?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah, I mean, football was my main sport, so I played table tennis secondary and just played local league. And to be fair, had no idea about anything else apart from local league. It wasn't until before that I kind of got to know a little bit more about the bigger picture.
And did you play all the way through from, was it 14 you said, up till 34?
Yeah, I think my first season playing competitively would have been about 14 or 15, playing the local league. Played all the way through until my 33rd birthday, when I had a serious accident at work, nearly died, nearly got crushed to death, and had to take about 2 years out of doing anything, just basically lay on a sofa, playing PlayStation, as I recuperated, eating Pringles and fudge. What I'm doing now, pretty much, during the isolation. But yeah, and it's that time I was sitting at home, nothing to do, so I started just looking at, understand more about table tennis, really, and the bigger picture and what there is out there, all the coaching. That's when I kind of sort of got together that, I want to try and get better. I was a player who was bottom end of my local Premier League prior to my accident, and I thought I want to try and get better. Gave myself a goal of basically at the age of 40 to be able to play for my county veteran side, which I did. So I reached that goal. I had other goals, but then work, taking up coaching stuff. The other goals, my playing goals, have all been put on hold now.
Have you played for the senior team?
I've not played for the senior team, no, and it wasn't really interested in playing for them.
You weren't.
I think the senior team should be for players who aren't veterans.
Right. I don't agree with that. I think if you're good enough, I think you should be on it. I mean, there is a bit of that in Sussex as well, especially for the third team. I mean, for the first and second, they probably just put the best players on, but for the third team, they're more likely to put younger players, which I don't necessarily agree with. Okay, you're playing for the vets already, but why not? If you're good enough, I think you should still play for the seniors. Anyway, what did your average go up to in the Premier Division after you got better?
I think the best year was probably around about, I don't know, don't really know to be fair. It probably went up from, I was about 20% prior to accident, 25%, to probably about 65, 70, but I'm not really sure to be fair.
And just talk a bit about your coaching. So I know you coach in 2 clubs in Corby, don't you?
So obviously I coach on a paid basis at Corby Smash, and that's ever since they opened in January 2016. So it became my job. And we've also got another venue in Kettering, so Smash Kettering, and I run and coach there as well. And then volunteer at Corby Town, so the club that I came through. So putting some of my time back into the club that I came through. Yeah.
So Corby Town is just like 1 or 2 sessions a week, is it? And then the rest is Corby Smash, where you actually get paid.
So we used to be 2 sessions. Then about a year ago, we went up to 3 sessions. Right. Say 3 sessions. So match night, 1 night, and then two practice and coaching sessions. And actually, just sorry, go on.
I was going to say, which club do you play league for?
Well, I didn't play last season. I didn't play any league at all. It's the first time I've not played. But it would be Corby Town. That's the club I registered for. Yeah.
Cool. And aspirations for the future, goals?
I mean, from a personal thing, obviously to continue my own coaching journey, coaching development. Obviously to use that cliche phrase, to be the best that I can be. Obviously to help those that I work with, really. Yeah, you,
me, and Dave Randerson are the 3 webinar kings of lockdown, I think, aren't we?
I think I've drank so much coffee.
We've been on more webinars than everybody else put together, I think. Okay, moving on. Unless you wanted to say something else.
No, I was going to say, so I want to be the best I can, but obviously, and I look at my county head as Northamptonshire county coach as well, and really want to get the Northamptonshire county respected, because our county results across all age levels are pretty poor, and that's despite down the years we've had some very, very good players. We had the Arnold brothers, Chris Duran, Alex Ramsden, people like that, but our results are quite poor, really. So I really want to try and improve table tennis across Northamptonshire.
I know a couple of years ago, actually, on counties, a couple of years ago, I know that you pulled out some of those players and tried to get promotion to the Prem in senior counties. You almost did it. So
Chris played a couple of years ago, didn't he? Yeah. And obviously Sam Wilson is Northamptonshire based, but he's now living in Sweden. So
it's getting these top players to actually turn out for the county is the hard thing. So you almost don't want them to be too good.
They get too good.
Because then they don't want to play. You kind of want them to be good, but not overly good.
Yeah.
But okay, we'll move on to Liam. So give us a bit of your history, table tennis-wise.
Yeah, so my name's Liam McTiernan. I'm delighted to be here on Rory's show tonight.
Welcome.
How I got to table tennis. So my dad bought one of those pool tables that turns into a table tennis table that many people have in their houses. Really enjoyed it. At this point, my dad was taking me to try out lots of different sports, from football, rugby, cricket. And I was fortunate enough to be from Reading, where there's 2 good clubs. So I started off at Ollop Impact. Great place to start, but very social, good dynamic about it. And then I moved, sort of, as well as playing for them, moved on to go to training sessions at Kingfisher, which is a 24-hour club in Reading. And then from there, I played National Cadet League, National Junior League, went up through sort of playing more national junior tournaments, including some of Rory's famous 1 and 2 stars in Horsham. And then when I sort of trained more with better players, I was in the England junior squad. And I think sort of notable achievements as a junior was probably sort of top 5. I won the under 16, under 19s national schools. And then in the last few years, I went off to university and I helped set up sort of the modern University of Nottingham Table Tennis Club. So took the role as president and really made a push for getting better players in, getting more funding, sort of building the club profile. And then in terms of table tennis, the last few years and currently, just been playing mainly Senior British League, few Prem matches in Championship as well for Ormsby, a Grand Prix here or there, and also I'm one of those players that is at that level to play counties for Berkshire. So that's something I very much enjoy doing. And then I guess going into the future in the next few years, same sort of thing. So a few Grand Prix, county, British League, and then last week I was appointed to the members advisory group. So I'm really passionate about sort of contributing more towards the future of table tennis.
So what does that involve, being on the members advisory committee? What does that involve?
So simply, one of the reasons I applied for it was because having studied economics at university, my job is I work in corporate strategy for O2. So essentially, the role is quite similar to that of the members advisory group, where the board, so Table Tennis England board in this case, will help decide some strategic questions they need help with, such as a new ranking system, how to get women into the sport, how to get volunteers into the sport, how to improve the profile of table tennis, those sort of questions.
So do you have meetings on Zoom, or is it physical meetings?
Yeah. Yeah, so the idea is a couple of the people in members advisory group will go out and interview a pool of people, whether that's people from local clubs, whether that's players, whether that's whoever, on Zoom, face-to-face, etc. Get as many views externally of the members, then really represent those views and pull together a recommendation for the board on that strategic topic. And then within the advisory group, we have several meetings a year where we discuss those topics.
Very good, very good. I think the first time I met you was probably Greenway School. You're probably 13 or 14, I think. I think I played you. Who won that?
I don't think I've ever lost to you, but I don't know. I'm sure you'll be looking through the records to prove it. But it'd be because it was very, very long ago. I remember I came to your camp to coach me for a bit.
Oh, did I? Did you? Yeah.
Yeah. I came to a few Horsham camps.
Yeah. I would probably say you beat me even then, actually.
But probably a very close game.
But it was obviously would have been fairly close then. I mean, yeah. So.
Yeah.
Cool.
Nonetheless, you're definitely on my list for players that I don't want to play again, just in case.
I don't think that's true. Okay, we'll move on to Thomas Arnott. Thomas, tell us a bit about your how you got into table tennis and what kind of you've done and so on.
Yeah, so I got into it really through primary school, actually. So fairly early on, I guess. We had like a primary school tournament or something at the end of the year. I beat one of the kind of seeded players or whatever. There was kind of a squad thing run by an external club, Darren, who I then joined. So got into this squad thing basically at school, then got invited to the local club from there. And then from there I kind of started going to Rory'S 2-stars and doing a bit of training and everything, and ended up playing a few 4-stars while doing like local league and that kind of thing. So yeah, and then I kind of stopped playing when I was about 15, I want to say. I kept going with local league and stuff, but pretty much stopped. And then I came back probably when I was just when I turned 17, so about a year ago, I reckon.
Still 17.
I started playing. Yeah, I'm still 17, almost 18, but yeah, now I started playing a little bit since then at Bing Hall Table Tennis Club. So
is that in Sussex?
Sorry,
is that in Sussex?
Kent.
No, it's in Kent.
Okay,
so fairly close, like 35 minutes from Rory, but I've never played Horsham. So, but yeah, I also do a little bit of coaching on a kind of volunteer basis at the primary school that I kind of went through. So they've got a pretty good setup there, and I think they came second at the like national schools or whatever a couple of years ago. So that was quite nice, and yeah, quite enjoy the coaching aspect of it really. I've got a younger brother as well who's quite good. So
you mean you coaching the team?
Yeah, I was coaching at kind of the sessions or whatever, and then I went to the nationals. And
do you have a coaching qualification?
No, I don't think that. Yeah.
Is that
prefer
something
to
you
read
would
about coaching.
pursue or not really?
Honestly, I don't have time to do the weekends or whatever on the time when I could just kind of read, and I've learned from enough coaches and seen what good coaching is. So
Yeah, but you don't
I
need to
don't
go
think
to
it's
the
worth it.
tournament necessarily. You could just have a coaching session once a week, just get kids playing or whatever. But
Exactly. Yeah, I don't think they're really necessary for me. So
no. Are you're going to university, are you? I take it?
yeah, so I'm going to, well, hopefully London School of Economics and trying to kind of pick up table tennis again. Obviously I'm in London, so pretty good
Yeah,
options.
definitely.
That's something I've kind of struggled with is, as you said in the episode last week, kind of living in somewhere where there's not a big club. That was kind of one of my issues, which is why I stopped, was there was no kind of bigger club to progress to that was kind of easily accessible, and went with like football and running, which I also do on site. So that's kind of the main things. But
So I
yeah,
don't know
so
exactly what age you were when I met you, but it was definitely National Cadet League. So probably 12, I guess, 12, 13 or something.
Yeah.
And so I would have seen you at National Cadet League, Junior League, tournaments, circuit and 2 stars and so on. But yeah, so I've seen you quite a lot really. But yeah, so we're going to move on anyway to the topics that we've got. We've got 3 topics as usual. So the first one is timeouts. Are they a good thing for the sport of table tennis? And when and how should they be used? I'll go to Liam first on this.
Yeah. So I think timeouts are really good for the sport. I think that in my personal experience anyway, they're probably used more effectively as you get older. So actually, when you go to these younger sort of cadet and junior tournaments, they're probably used a bit more infrequently, mainly by coaches, and sort of without as much purpose. But I think that in my experience, I use timeouts when for a couple of sort of scenarios. So one might be that you're leading like an 8-4 or an 8-3 or whatever, to close a crucial set, and they come back, and then you want to sort of save one to break up the momentum of play, have a rest, and then maybe change some stuff up or just reflect on what's been going on, because it's so easy to just be so involved without thinking about what you're doing the same thing every single point, or you've been playing it every single ball to their backhand or something like that. And then the other one, where more recently I've been using this, is at close juice points, because I think that you can really, really maximise a timeout by having a clear plan and vision of the point, especially in like a crucial point to win a set, to then go back and execute on that. So that's what I've been using them more recently.
Do you use them on yourself or on other people mostly?
What do you mean by that?
Like, do you call yourself a timeout, or are you talking about calling a timeout for somebody else?
Oh, what, in terms of like if in a coaching position?
Yes.
I mainly have always sort of called my own timeouts, unless you've got a very authoritative coach like Dennis Neal, who often in British League will call a timeout for me, which I'm perfectly fine with. But yeah, so mainly it's for myself. I very rarely call it out unless the player has said, I want you to recognise that something's going wrong, and by all means call it.
So just to kind of explain to anybody out there watching that doesn't really know what a timeout is or exactly what it is, you're allowed to have a 1-minute break at any time during your best of 5 match once, where you can just have a minute, and the other you can be coached by a coach during that time, or you can just relax or whatever. Now, some people might not know this, in a singles tournament or singles event, if the coach calls a timeout and the player doesn't want it, that the player can decide not to take it. But if it's a team event and the coach calls a timeout and the player doesn't want it, the coach ultimately can decide that the player still needs to take the timeout. The coach might change his mind if he realizes that the player doesn't want it, because it might just do more harm than good. But ultimately, the coach has the decision. Good. Henry, do you want to give your thoughts on timeouts?
Sure, yeah. So for me, timeouts, got to be honest, I prefer if they weren't available or weren't allowed.
Yeah.
I see once you go over the barriers into the court, it's a it's an arena. It's, arena of gladiators. You're eye to eye with your opponent, and it should just be the two people competing. That in the perfect world, that's what I'd see. There wouldn't be any timeouts. Leave the players to figure out for themselves. Okay. However, we have timeouts.
On that thought process, would you have any coaches?
Again, that became a different issue, because anybody who's around the side of the court, it can be a supporter, a coach, they all like to give some kind of advice. So that's much harder. So I think the discussion, I can't remember this show or a different show, I think, regarding giving advice during a match, I'm okay with that, because it happens. And people doing the old, touching the nose, wiggling the ear, that used to happen. So I'm okay with that, because I think that's created an even balance, whereas previously people were maybe cheating to get some coaching advice. But the timeouts, I'm not in favour of, really. I'd rather we didn't have them. But I say we do have them, so great. And I can see some advantage. I mean, especially if table tennis ever did become a TV sport, the timeout, I mean, there's a great advertising option, isn't there? You've got a minute timeout, the adverts come in, extra revenue. Similar, I mean, I thought about this, if we look at the football now, they've got the drinks breaks at 22 minutes into a game and whatever. I think if that continues, you just know Sky are ever going to use those for advertising purposes. So if table tennis did become popular on TV, there's a great advertising break, that 1 minute timeout, whatever, they get a quick 60-second advert for Lucozade or whatever it might be. Finding that when is the right time, and it changes, in different matches. Say Liam said 8-4 up, player gets 3 points, 8-7, call a timeout, stop that run of points. That's good. I was saying about call a timeout at 9-9 in the first. Doesn't often happen, but going back to when I was housebound, recovered from the accident, I went through a year's worth of results on 365, our local league, and found, I think it was something like 70% of matches, the person who won the first game went on to win the match. So if you're calling a timeout at 9-9 in the first and they win that game, that could be a decisive timeout. You don't have to wait till 8-8 in the fifth. I think it's brave to call one that early. Not many people, I think, do, but it could be the right decision. Obviously, talk about who calls timeouts, whether it's the player or the coach. That's the decision. I think the players and the coach, they need to talk before the match starts to have an idea of who's responsible for it, so that you're not, if you said to the player, I'm going to call a timeout, and then you don't call one, and he's desperate for one, but he's like almost scared to call it because the coach said, I'm going to call it. That doesn't really work well. So that player-coach sort of relationship has to be quite key, and that communication going on there. Yeah. Other times to call a timeout, I said, if your player's getting wound up, they've just had a yellow card, they're getting agitated. Maybe they've, I was saying I've called a timeout once, a player got done for an illegal serve, and he got called again for an illegal serve. And I had to call a timeout to, bring him over, talk to the player, calm him down. Also, look, if the umpire's going to call that illegal serve, you need to give him, so there's no doubt it's legal, and maybe just stop doing that serve, because he's just going to keep calling you on that serve. So that's what sort of areas where timeouts can be beneficial. Obviously, you've got there could be a timeout when you're using it for a tactical reason. Serve here, whatever it is. I'm not necessarily too keen on that, because I like the players to be thinking tactically. So I don't often give too much advice when I'm calling a coach regarding tactics. I'm more there, I think, as a psychologist in a way, just trying to keep them focused and in the game, and believing in themselves and what they can do.
Good, some good comments there. Tom, your points on this?
Yeah, I was just going to touch on Henry's point, actually, with the relationship between the coach and the player. I think is really key with timeouts. I think timeouts are great, actually. I think they add a completely different element to the game, psychologically, which I think is really important in table tennis anyway. So why would we not have them? I also think they kind of add a lot of drama, really, as well, in a way. in terms of when you call a timeout, especially. It's kind of it's a big moment really in the game of timeout. So you kind of have to appreciate that. But yeah, just going back to the kind of coach and player relationship, it's all well and good kind of with the coach and player deciding on who's calling the timeout. But I think it's really important that you appreciate the coach has to understand when the player wants the timeout in terms of that momentum. So if a player's 9-0 up, whatever, and the player starts to get a few points back, do you know if that player then wants a timeout? So knowing when that player wants the timeout, I think is actually really important, and it's maybe a discussion that people don't have. And whether they're comfortable calling a timeout in the first game at 9-0, I think that's something that's kind of quite important, really. But yeah, I just think it creates really good drama, really, in terms of that kind of that sudden. It's almost like I was thinking in ping pong with like the double point ball.
Yeah.
It's that kind of.
Oh, yeah. I was going to say that.
Change, really.
Yeah.
It's just like it can change a game completely. So I think it's really important. And I just think like in terms of like sports psychology, obviously it's something that you kind of appreciate as you get older. So I would agree that, yeah, obviously as juniors, it's probably less important and you should probably just let them work out for themselves what they want to do. And you know what, probably calling a timeout as a junior and it working well, like, and realising that this is a thing is probably the best thing you can do for your development.
Yeah. Do we know whether timeouts are used in the ping pong? Are they allowed in the ping pong?
I don't know.
No, I don't think they do they?
I don't think they do. No.
I think they do, no.
I don't recall them. No.
Which is quite telling because the ping pong is basically everything it possibly can do to make it as spectator friendly as possible.
But obviously, like they do, you said the ping pong and the double point ball. I mean, I love how they do that and they darken the lights and they get the music going and everything. And again, that's something that table tennis could introduce. You know, imagine that in the nationals when they call a timeout and they get a heartbeat music going on and stuff, and the crowd start giving it. You know, that'd would be awesome. Don't know if the players would like it, but I think that'd be fantastic.
Okay.
Going timeouts. I remember, I said about I wanted to make my county veteran debut, and it was the night before my county veteran debut. I'd been out for a couple of shandies. I should say this, or maybe a couple too many shandies, and I did call a timeout in about the third game of my first match, literally because I was dying of dehydration, and I had to call a timeout and just drank about a gallon of water. So yeah, and I did win the match amazingly too.
Okay, so I'll just give my thoughts quickly on timeouts. Obviously, the pros and cons. I think overall, it's probably a good thing. The cons could be like it obviously makes the match longer, and if you've got people watching, and it does delay tournaments a bit. So some tournaments have, for that reason, not allowed them. For example, all the vets VETTS tournaments don't allow timeouts. National Cadet League, National Junior League don't allow timeouts because they've got.
League.
Sorry?
Local league don't allow them either, do they?
Local league, yeah. And I think the main reason for that is because it just it adds time onto the day, and there's lots of matches to get through, and you know. So one other thing is that is it fair? Say one person's got a highly qualified coach, the other person doesn't. You know, the coach calls a timeout, completely changes the dynamics of the match, and his player wins. How fair is that? I guess everybody's allowed.
Coaching though.
Everybody's allowed to have their coach. Everybody could have a high level coach, but it can.
Rory, I think if you go down that line, then you could say, is it fair that one person's using Tenergy and one person's not?
No, because I would never like to use Tenergy. I think it's rubbish.
Wow.
You know, I just think it has no control.
You might also never. You might personally not like a high profile coach, high skilled coach either.
Rather coach yourself.
Okay, yeah, but I mean, coaching someone at the in between games has been allowed. You know, I think since day one. But I think psychologically, the timeout can kind of hit a player, and that I had that game won, and now I've lost it. You know. Anyway, I'm not saying that I overall think that they should be allowed. I'm just kind of playing devil's advocate.
You think they should be allowed in local league?
Should they be allowed in local league? I don't know. I'm not sure. What do you think yourself?
I definitely think they should. I think that, I only think they should because I think if it's part of the sport, it's part of the sport. But
Yeah, that's a good point. Actually, Guildford League, which I played in, does allow them, and I did actually use them a few times, and sometimes it worked actually. Yeah, so maybe, yeah.
How late do you finish though? Because like as a student,
There's
is it
lots
like
of.
when
To be
you're a
honest,
teenager, you're getting
not
back
that
that
many-
late?
Not that many people call them in the league. I mean, I called them a few times, but they weren't used very often.
So technically, even if every single person on a 3x3 team calls a timeout, it's only going to take 9 minutes longer.
Nine
Yeah,
extra.
I know. But
Not
it
in local
would
league,
still
it's
probably annoy me.
Anyway, I want to give my pros for them. I mean, one really good use of a timeout is when you're getting annoyed. You know, say you've just missed a few easy balls, the other person's coming back, you're starting to get agitated, and obviously that's happened to me a number of times.
We're all looking at Rory here.
That is an ideal time to call a timeout, 100%. That is when you call a timeout, you count to 10 or 60 or whatever, and you try and get yourself back mentally into the game. And I think that's a good thing because nobody wants, things to escalate. Also, like other people have said, if you've just lost a run of a few points, especially if you were in the lead initially and then somebody's got 4 or 5 points in a row, you should try and call it before they level up, I think. If they've already leveled up, it's probably too late, or, well, it's probably better than nothing, but you should do it a bit earlier. And possibly, like you say, if it's match point and you've had a few match points, saying you've lost them, maybe just to take that time and think about what serve to do or receive or whatever, and just to take your time and gather your thoughts. But yeah, overall, it's probably a good thing. And as Henry said, it can be used for the ad break. And it is, I think, in international table tennis. So good. So we're going to move on to the second topic. The second topic is regarding the new change of rule, which is, it was originally supposed to come in after the 2020 Olympics, but now obviously the 2020 Olympics are going to be in 2021. So the rule I'm talking about is the fact that you can have one side is going to be black of your bat, but the other side can be any bright color. So you still have to have black one side, but instead of having red on the other side, you're allowed to choose a different color. You can still choose red, obviously, but you can choose another bright color if you choose to. And we're just discussing whether or not this is a good thing for the game or the implications. So I will start with Tom this time.
Yeah, I actually think it's probably a good thing, although I'm not entirely sure why I brought it in. Looking at it, I don't really see the point of it, but I don't think there's anything wrong with it in the same way. It's another option, and I guess if they're looking to try and make the sport more kind of watchable, then they've done the 38 mils to 40 mils with the ball and whatever. If they want to increase the number of colours you can use, then why not? I was also thinking potentially it's probably good for manufacturers as well. I mean, they're probably going to make more money out of it, which is obviously a positive. Not sure about kind of the options they'll have and stuff, but I was also thinking it kind of bridges the gap potentially between like the recreational table tennis and the professional table tennis that we have. And even though the kind of colour options might be used at that kind of recreational kind of level a bit more than they would be at a top level, well, we'll have to see. But kind of people like Adidas that kind of catered for those kind of more like newer players to the game or whatever, who go, oh yeah, look, Adidas, that looks cool, whatever. That might actually kind of work for them, having that different colour rubber. And to be honest, like for getting like young people into the game and stuff, it could actually be all right. You kind of go, oh yeah, I'll use a yellow bat instead of like the boring red one. And yeah, I don't know, it just kind of goes with the 21st century customizable idea, I guess. So I'm kind of for it. Not entirely sure why they brought it in or if it's actually going to work, but we will see. Might be really good. Probably worth an option. So yeah.
Okay, Henry.
So for me, obviously I see it just as a gimmick, but on saying that, I don't have a problem with it. Almost Tom said, that customization, I've put, it allows some individuality for players, and I think that's a good thing. Again, if we talk about marketing players and stuff, that having that individuality's got to be good. I've got no preference either way. If it didn't happen for any reason, I wouldn't be bothered. But if it does happen, yeah, good as well. Again, I keep often talking back to football and going back. Refs used to always wear black, and then they changed it. And a lot of people saying, why did they change it? Now refs, every season they seem to have a different colour.
I didn't know that. I thought they always wore black, to be honest. I didn't realise.
No, I think the kit this year is pink, actually. I'm not 100% sure. I can't remember now. Goalkeepers used to always wear green shirts. Not anymore. Football boots used to always be black. Now you've got any colour going. So these gimmicks have happened in, I'm taking football, the major sport.
That's a really good example.
So they've happened in those sports. So it is a gimmick. Is it going to change the sport drastically? Probably not. But it does, adds a little bit of entertainment value, perhaps.
Okay, Liam?
So this is what I'm really, really torn on, because personally, I think the sport needs to be made way more marketable, mainly, in my opinion anyway, from the court being smaller and less time between points. However, in any way, shape or form, I think it needs to be more marketable, more watchable, like a lot of lessons can be learned from the Ali Pali, which is a great event. However, and therefore, on that logic, you think that different colour bats, should be fine. However, I do think that it does take a slight professionalism away from it, and I don't know sort of what the justification for that is. However, my original sort of thought process was in like these tournaments outside of the ICTF circuit, like T2, where they're experimenting with a lot of different things. I think that it should be allowed, and I think they should definitely do it.
They've already done it, I think, in that, haven't they?
Oh, really? Okay, fine. Well, that's the exact sort of tournament I think should be doing it. And then if you transpired that to the UK, I think local league up to like 2 stars should also be allowed it. But then to keep that professionalism at the top, maybe not allow it. However, having heard Henry's argument just there about the football boots, I think that has actually swayed me to just thinking, let's just do it. Because the football boots one's the exact example where people were probably saying, it's so not professional when it happened, and now everyone's doing it. And also, I'm a huge fan of Star Wars and lightsabers, and I love the fact that it sort of correlates to that. So I think, why not? It's pumping more interest, more money into the sport, even if it's incremental. So let's give it a trial. If it doesn't work out, then you can always revert back. Yeah,
tennis rackets can be any colour, obviously, and the strings can be any colour. Although if you play at Wimbledon, you have to wear predominantly white, but the other tournaments you can wear whatever colours you like. So you see French Open, you see Federer, Rafael Nadal wearing very bright colours, and obviously they've got white.
The only thing I say about that, Rory, is right now we can wear shirts like you're wearing there, right? Like a bright one. But we're talking about the equipment, which is what it's like. Which is why the football boot example is spot on.
Yeah, I did mention the rackets, obviously, as well. But okay, so I think it's good. I think try it, see how it goes. I think it might make people more interested initially, just to see what colors people choose, and it makes it a bit brighter. It might kids might say, I want a bright orange, or I want a bright yellow rubber, or girls might maybe bright pink and purple or whatever. Not necessarily. I mean, anybody can have any color, but I'm just saying. But I think it might be quite a good thing. I mean, as Henry said, it's not going to be a drastic change. It's not going to suddenly have millions of people extra coming into the sport. But I think anything is good.
I think you're going to get. If it happens, you're gonna get those people that are just obsessed with table tennis, who are gonna have every single colour of Tenergy or whatever it's gonna be, and they might even take it off and put it on for like different tournaments. And I think that's pretty interesting.
Well, interestingly, if you're a pimples player, you'll probably know this already, but the different colours of rubbers and the dyes and whatever do have different effects. So, for example, with a long pimple rubber, if you have it in red, it's way more effective with the treble effect and more control, and it's more effective if it's in the red version. If it's in the black version, it's easier to hit with, to attack with, but not so good for control and treble effect. So it would be interesting to see the different effects of the different colors on the new rubber.
I can't wait for the advertising marketing gumph about it saying, yeah, you know, we take Tenergy. The Tenergy yellow rubber will do this, and the Tenergy pink rubber, and everyone getting so worked up about it.
Yeah.
We're like, oh,
I mean,
no.
there actually is quite a difference in the effect of pimples, red and black, because I've never used the black along pimple rubber. I've always used red. Whenever I've tried somebody else's bat that's been black, I've thought, no. I mean, maybe it's partially psychological, but there is a definite effect. The red dye, I've read about it a number of times. The red dye does have an effect on the speed and so on. I mean, even with normal regular rubbers, there are differences between the red and the black rubbers. As far I think the red, I'm not sure about this, but I think the red is faster compared to the black, but I might have that backwards. I don't know if
I'm sure.
Oh yeah, I've heard that.
I'm sure some people will look into it, and the different colours, whether it's a psychological advantage. You know, they say like red has this psychological advantage, black's this, and you know there'll be people who'll be looking for those. Again, those minute gains, perhaps, who think, you know, whatever colour will give some kind of psychological advantage over the opponent. Yeah.
Not even just psychological, I don't think, as well. If you're thinking like people are probably going to try and go for the colour that's closest to like the table colour and stuff, and matching your shirt with your colour, like the bat and stuff.
Okay. Got two questions.
Tom, you sound like you played the veteran circuit of all these.
I've got two questions for everybody. First of all, will you change to a different colour rubber on one side? And second question, whether or not you will change, if you had to change, what colour would you change to? So, Tom, would you change when they allow the new different colours? First question.
Yeah, I think I would. I think
colour?
I'd go yellow. I think just like the whole new aspect of it might throw someone off, and that's all I need.
Okay,
So,
that's one for yes, and yellow is the colour. Henry?
I don't know. I've got to be honest. I've got to be honest. But if I go back to the football boot story, when everyone else was changing, I stayed with black boots. I wanted to be a traditionalist. I was like, what are these guys doing wearing yellow boots and stuff? Yeah. But yeah, I might be tempted. Do they
have a yes or a no answer?
Do they have a blue one? Is
yes.
blue one of the colours?
Yeah. They have blue.
I might go for a bit of blue.
Okay, so we've got two yeses and a yellow and a blue. Liam?
I wouldn't at first unless it became much more mass market, and that's just because I'm not going to be the first person rocking up at Senior British League with a pink rubber. But if it did catch on, and if you had a number of people doing it, and if it looked good, I probably would want to see other people using it first and see how it looked.
So what colour? What colour?
I'd go for either green or purple.
I'm gonna have to push you for one colour.
All right, we'll go for Luke Skywalker green.
So you're a no, but a green if you had to at the moment.
Yeah.
Henry?
Interesting what Liam said there about not being the first person rocking up at Senior British League. You know what's going to happen. Teams will decide they're going to have a green rubber or a yellow rubber, and it will be part of their team dynamic, won't it, to have the same colour.
That is pretty cool, yeah.
Okay, now for me, I've got a problem with this because I know that red is very effective with long pimples, and obviously I can't change the black rubber. So I think I would be a no initially, like Liam, until I find out whether or not other colours of rubber are as effective as the red rubber in terms of pimples. It's unfortunate that it's the red rubber that is the one that I am allowed to change, but it's the one that I wouldn't want to change. Yeah. If it was the other way around and I could change the black rubber to a different colour, I would definitely do it, just because it's fun and it's interesting, and why not? Now, obviously, I'm not sure whether the prices are going to be different when they come out. I'm assuming there won't be, unless it actually pushes the price of every rubber up, which would be a bad thing. So if they say, yes, we're going to bring in different colours, but that means all the rubbers are going to be more expensive, then that's a bad thing, obviously. Well, I mean, it's a disadvantage. We're not going to say the whole thing is bad. if it's only the coloured rubbers that are more expensive, then I don't think many people will buy them. I don't think I would buy them if they were more expensive. Well, I guess it depends how much more expensive.
Yeah.
If it was a $5 more expensive, I probably wouldn't bother. I don't know. What do we think? Do we think that the rubbers are going to be more expensive because of the colours changing?
Yes.
No, I can't see it.
Yes.
Really?
Yes. From
Yeah.
Henry? I think yes. Liam?
I think they'll be as expensive as in line with inflation.
Okay, and so that's a no. And Tom?
No, I don't think they will be. I think they'll probably do it on a really small sample base at the start, so it'll probably be the same.
Okay, cool. All right, that was quite an interesting discussion. Even I didn't know how interesting it was going to be, but it turned out quite well. So we'll go on to the final topic, which is probably for me the most interesting one. Should all forms of pimples, which includes short pimples, medium pimples, and long pimples, and anti-spin, should all of those types of different rubbers be banned or not? And we'll go to Henry first.
Ooh, thanks for that one. I mean, obviously, the pros of having these kind of rubbers is the variety it brings to the game. You know, the different styles. It does keep it interesting for sure, rather than just having robots playing the same way all the time. And you know, and some people might have, you know, the limited mobility. You know, that they can be an advantage too, for sure. So there are some pros to it. The cons are non-table tennis players don't understand what's going on. You know, and I say non-table tennis players, lots of table tennis players as well don't understand what's going on. So they don't understand why they're missing. Or if you're a non-table tennis player and you're watching it, why is that person missing such an easy shot? They did it last time. They don't understand what's happening. So from a spectator point of view, they're not great for the neutral viewer. You know, I was at Nationals. I think Mary Baldwin, you know, playing with them. It was fantastic to see someone, you know, getting to the final playing with them.
The only point I'll make about that is when you talk about spectators, you're presumably talking about mostly professional players, and professional players probably don't have too much trouble reading the spin, and so they probably won't be just dumping them in the net.
No, because then you've got to assume that a professional player is playing an equally skilled professional player with those pimples.
Yeah, but they still tend to get good rallies. They don't tend to just dump things in. It's not like local league where somebody puts the bat in front of it and the other person just misses it. Professionals, they'll generally get into good long rallies. So,
well, I mean, I'm talking about your average spectator who might be. We don't matter whether it's a local league match or whatever it might be. They walk in, you know, it's a tournament's getting held at a sports centre here, a local closed tournament, and they walk in and they're watching and they're like, well, what's going on? They're not very good. So it's not, you know.
Well, I think
it's not great from a spectator point of view.
There will be more unforced errors due to the funny rubbers, but you might also get longer rallies because the defenders can, you know, keep the rally going longer. So there's pluses and minuses to that, I would say. Would you agree, Henry?
Yeah. I mean, so there's pros and cons, but I think, you know, for the average non-table tennis person, it could be a parent of a kid or something. These funny rubbers are a big turn off for the sport. For me, you know, I like the variety for sure. You know, I do know they can put junior players off playing. You know, they come up against them locally, or even those that key demographic, the social players who are looking to get into playing in our local league table tennis. They love the social. So they start playing local league. They play against somebody who's playing with some dodgy rubber. They haven't a clue what's going on. It's no fun, and they end up stopping. And those people are obviously very, very key, probably to the future of table tennis. So it is an issue there.
But then you could, just to flip that round a bit, the kind of keen players, it might actually give them a bit more challenge and a bit more motivation to think, come back and I want to beat this player. You know, if he beat that player 11-2 with normal rubbers, he'd be like, "Oh, this is boring." You know, possibly. I'm just being devil's advocate.
So I think a lot of those, you know, social players or, you know, local players, they're playing for fun and stuff. And when they're playing against these funny rubbers, they don't understand it's not fun, so it just puts them off completely. But overall, I think they should be part of the game. I do like the variety of them. County circuit playing a vets rating tournaments. I can play 7 people, 5 of them are playing with funny rubbers. What a nightmare that is. But it's all part of the game.
Yeah. Okay, Liam.
I was just going to make a point on, as the context is like sort of moving towards local league, which is fine because I do have a point on that. Before I actually start my point, though, I must mention that today the Reading League announced that the final table is the final position. So my team, All Up Impact, have won the league. So that was good. But in terms of locally, so the argument that was made there was that if you're walking into a sports hall and you see someone dumping it in the bottom of the net, I would question, and that's a local league match, assuming, I would question that the alternative you're going to get is going into a hall and watching a 50-shot push-to-push rally, right? Which a lot of people, know that goes on in local leagues. And a lot of young people get frustrated at that because at that age they can't really, do a backhand loop. But I think that the exact opposite. I don't think they should be banned at all. I think they should be promoted, right? I think more young players should be encouraged to use them, and you should go to tournaments, and there should be a much more bigger variety of people using these rubbers. Namely, the fact because there isn't now, there is that problem of a junior that's doing backhand middle, backhand wide every day, 5 days a week, and they come up against Bob from the local league and they lose 3-0, right? And that should not happen, and it is embarrassing. So I think they should be used more. I'm conflicted slightly because I think that a personal view is that you're probably at a disadvantage using those rubbers than using normal rubbers. However, I would like to see more people use it. And who am I to say that? Christian Carlson, I think, or whatever his name is, Matthias Falk, he got to the final of the World Championships using short pimples on the forehand. So who am I to say that you can't be you're at a disadvantage? So I think 100% use them more.
Good. Tom?
Yeah, I've got quite mixed opinions. I think definitely at like a young level, I don't think they should be encouraged for a good while because I do think they can probably stunt your development slightly.
Tom, you've played a lot of my junior.
I was going to say, Mr. Rory, I mean, I feel like all your players have played with long pimples at some point.
No.
But most of them have tried pimples at some point.
I've had 3 or 4 players in your kind of era that have played with long pimples. That's it. Charlie, Ollie, Will, and Sam.
The
other one.
Yeah.
5.
So quite a lot of them have tried pimples at at cadet age or under 13s or whatever. And I mean, I'm not obviously Charlie, for example, did so well at junior tournaments, even when he'll admit he wasn't that good. And I mean, he was playing backhands like this and everywhere and couldn't play a forehand. But I mean, that was crazy because I remember going to 2 Stars and watching him beat, top 20 players in the country when he was just putting his bat in the way and they just couldn't do anything past him.
He got to number 8 in the under 13s with long pimples. Yeah, which
is crazy because I think technically he was probably outside the top 100. But yeah, he'd probably agree with me on that. But obviously he's a great player now. But no, I do think they're quite important though. Especially, I think the point on people with limited mobility, that's a great thing to have pimples. But yeah, when you're a junior coming up and you play against them, it almost feels like you're not actually losing to the player, you're losing to the equipment. And that's something that you kind of, especially juniors now are seeking that immediate gratification of actually beating someone or losing to them. You're not going to have that motivation to go and try and learn how to play against pimples and stuff. And especially if you're playing local league and if you're at a small club or whatever, there might not be that variation of play.
This is the exact thing. Some parents are against their kids playing local league for whatever reason, but this is the exact thing. This is the exact reason why I would always be on the side of encouraging it, because a child always or should learn to overcome that and have the drive to.
I think coaches obviously have a responsibility to teach people how to play against it, and it's if you're doing one-to-one sessions, I think it's easier than teaching group sessions of how to understand what's happening. And that's what it's about. It's understanding what's happening, isn't it? And I think too often, especially groups coach sessions, it tends to be the same stuff over and over again without going into that how to play against different rubbers. Partly because, we don't face them that very often. You've got a player for a couple of hours a week coaching. Well, how are you going to coach them? You're going to coach them against the styles they're going to face off more, I think.
A
But it's
perfect
definitely
example of this, by the way, Rory, is that, like Dave Barr. Dave Barr's a great player, right?
Yeah.
Played in my county for years. Mid-50s now, and he's still like top 50 in the country. And that's because there's always a huge pool of players that he will always beat, no matter how old he gets and no matter how much he trains.
Yeah.
Okay, I work with two coached two people who do use long pimples, but they are modern defenders. They are defenders using the pimples. They're not standing up at the table just doing that type thing. And that's, again, not being someone who used pimples myself, I had to go away and learn a little bit more about pimples and how to coach about how to use them as well. So it was good for me.
So, Tom, was that a yes or a no? You were kind of undecided. Should they be banned or not?
No, they shouldn't be banned, I don't think. Also, I was going to touch on the kind of sessions. It's completely different learning how to play against them and actually playing against them. I remember when I was told, when you get into a match and you try and it goes horribly wrong. And that's probably a point for having like mixed age coaching sessions as well, where you have got older players there instead of just juniors who are all playing forehand loops to each other. Like, you need to learn how to play against them.
Or like in my club where you have juniors that use it. I mean, okay, I do coach a higher percentage of pimples players than most other coaches, being that
Why do you put them on pimples, Rory, out of interest?
Well, let me get to that. But
Good
I would
question.
still say that I only put less than 10% of people on pimples, probably a lot less, probably 5%. It's just that sometimes these players that I put onto pimples actually do quite well, and so they're more known than some of my other players who, don't get the results, for example. Okay, so why do I put them onto pimples? The only time I've ever put people onto pimples is, and I've never put anybody onto anti-spin, is if I think it suits their game. So Charlie, you mentioned, Charlie Graham Adams, for example, he had an extremely good backhand block. He could play it from everywhere. He never played a forehand. Even before he ever went to pimples, he just played backhands everywhere and he blocked it. And it was the way he blocked it, and it was just the perfect way that if he used long pimples, it was just that shot was made for pimples. And he got instant success. And like I said, he got to number 8 in the under 13s ranking list. And he's beaten some way better players than me. He hasn't beaten me in a proper match, but it was 11-9 in the 5th when I played him last time, and he doesn't even play that much anymore. But yeah, he's beaten.
Why didn't you just put everything to his forehand?
I know his forehand has got a bit better now. Obviously, the thing is, he started off just playing backhand. I mean, he still mainly plays backhand, but he can smash a bit on the forehand, and he's got a decent serve now. So I think people sometimes just getting early success with a player can inspire them to keep playing and play more, and develop the other aspects of the game. If I hadn't given him pimples back then, he wouldn't have had the early success, and who knows, would he still be playing now? I mean,
yeah, that's a good point.
He doesn't play all that much anymore. He's playing local league and British league, and I think that's all he's doing at the moment. But he's still a good player.
Would you encourage them all to get pimples then?
No.
And try them out?
Well, everybody should try them out just to get a feeling for how they play and how other people use them, and maybe they can help them when they do play against other people. For example, what I do is I'll run a group session. I'll bring along whatever number of pimples bats that I need so that everybody can try them out. So I'll get one person to use their own bat and the other person to use a pimples bat, and just so they can experiment what it's like to play with the bat. And obviously I'll explain to them how each of the rubbers works and how to play with them and against them.
Would you, if it was up to you, Rory, would you allow the ping pong bat, sandpaper, to be allowed?
Yes, why not? I don't think anybody would use them, or many anyway. Well, the only people that might use them are people that actually want to train to get better so they can play in the ping pong championships. But I can't see many people, because it'd be a big disadvantage to using sandpaper. But yeah, and Ollie Michel. The reason I put him onto it was because he had a kind of a vicious backhand push, and that would, with the long pimples, that gave him a lot of cheap, high balls which he could put away with the forehand. He actually had a forehand, although he didn't actually reach the level that Charlie reached. He was more of an all-rounder and tended to go back a bit more. He's now quit a year ago, which was a shame. But Ollie Thorne is a bit different. In his case, I put him onto, I started him off on short pimples, then I went to, on his backhand then he went to long pimples on his backhand, and then he went to long pimples on the backhand and short pimples on the forehand. And that was more, it was more because he'd kind of stagnated and he wasn't really able to spin the ball well. And it was kind of, in his case, it was more just because he'd been playing a lot of years and hadn't really improved significantly. And it was really just to try and give him some success, and it worked. And last year he got, so the season before he was 80% in Division 2 of the local league. And last season, this season still, he got about 60% in the Division 1. So he jumped up a division and he still had a good percentage. And he beat some of the really experienced Division 1 players who had previously been Premier players. So his problem is consistency. But yeah, I think it's great. I mean, personally, when I play long pimple players, against certain people, yeah, it absolutely makes them more difficult for me to beat. Older guys who, if they use normal rubbers, I'd probably thrash them. But because they're using pimples, I've got a really difficult match ahead of me. And actually, that's a good thing. The more we can increase the level of player and the more people are playing the game, the better. And if they're competing at a good level still in their 60s and 70s because they can use long pimples, it's a good thing. The only downside of that is if they're still playing at a good level, a lot of them might not be choosing to put time back into the game as a coach and organizer or whatever, but some of them still do both anyway. But I think it's great. You play different people, you work out how to beat them. Obviously I use it myself, and I think I'm a lot more difficult to beat with long pimples. It gives me more options. I can still play a good game without long pimples, and sometimes I actually choose to play a player who's good against pimples, like Martin Gunn, for example, and I've beaten him with normal rubbers on both sides, and there's a few other examples. But I think it's just, the reason I changed to them was because, I was kind of losing a little bit of interest. I was going along to tournaments and, I'd get close in the fifth against good players, and then I'd just dump 2 serves into the net or off the end. And I just thought, it made it more interesting, and I do a lot of twiddling. So like I'll maybe chop one with the pimples and twiddle and play a backhand topspin. And I think it makes it a lot more fun and more variety. And I definitely think it's a good thing for the game. And it also can make for really more, better spectator experience, as long as the other person isn't just, completely messing up. It can make for longer rallies with chop and topspin. And yeah, overall, I think it's fantastic for the game. How many defenders do you have in the game now? Very few. If you took away all pimple rubbers and anti-spin, although anti-spin isn't that good, I don't think it's used at professional level. But if you took away all pimple rubbers, I think you're going to get rid of all the defenders. How many defenders could play at world-class level without pimples? There probably would be some, but I think it'd be even less than there are nowadays, and there aren't that many nowadays. And I think there's nothing better than watching a good attacker against a good defender in table tennis, at least some of the time. We don't get to see it that much, and when you do get to see it, it's quite.
The thing is,
quite
see, on that point, I actually think it's quite interesting because, Joanna Drinkle used to chop with Tenergy both sides.
Yeah, well, she started off with short pimples on one side.
She did, but I would actually personally like to see more of that in the game. More people doing different styles, but using normal rubber.
Yeah, but I think you'd probably find that there'd be less people defending with normal rubber if you got rid of pimples. There's a defender called John.
Fuller.
John Fuller, yeah.
He's a Kettering League player, so I've played John many, many times.
Yeah, I've never seen him play or played against him, but apparently he's pretty pretty hot with the defending with normal rubbers on both sides. So
Yeah, use normal.
So yeah, I think we're in a consensus that long pimples shouldn't be banned, and they add variety to the game. Okay, any more quick points before we wrap the show up? We've got 4 minutes left.
So it sounds like we should all have long pimples in our repertoire at some point and take it back to tournaments in case.
Yeah. I think, bring one along if somebody's really bad against pimples. I think it's good for coaches to be able to develop that skill, to be able to play with pimples against their players, just so their players can learn an anti-spin. I mean, I can play with anything, and in local league I do, especially against weaker players. I'll just produce any bat. I'll produce a hard bat. I'll produce short pimples with sponge, my normal long pimple bat, normal rubbers both sides, medium pimples, and I still usually win unless because obviously I pick the people to play against. I'm not going to use it against people that could beat me.
Hello, Rory. I think Tom's just brought up a question for your next show, which is, should you be able to swap bats during the match?
During the match.
I was thinking the question could be, with normal rubber, should be a limit on thickness and stuff like that, so we're going the other way,
Yeah. Okay, so we'll wrap it up there. It's been another good show, and we'll be back next week. And I just want to thank everybody, Tom, Liam, and Henry, for your contribution, and very much appreciated. Well done, everybody.
Cheers, guys.
Bye.
Have a good evening. See you all later.
Bye.